Welcome to the Solid Verbal. The Solid Verbal.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
I've heard so many players say, well, I want to be happy. You want to be happy for a day? Eat a steak.
It's that woo-woo!
And now, Dan and Ty.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal, boys and girls. Ty Hildenbrand here, Dan Rubenstein over there. solidverbal@gmail.com, as always, is our email address. Feel free to drop us a line. We're also on iTunes at itunes.com/solidverbal, where you can subscribe for free and rate and review the show if you like what we're doing. We're also on SB Nation and solidverbal.com. And of course, anywhere you can find us on social media, especially on Facebook now, because as I said in the last show, I know how many people are following us and downloading us, but I don't see all y'all out there on facebook.com/solidverbal. So
Ty wants to see pictures of your children.
follow us, like us, you know the drill. Dan, how are you?
Your nephew is adorable. I am great, Ty.
Yeah.
I'm feeling good. So I'm rocking my green tea, so I can't complain. Pumping the antioxidants after an eventful, depressing, exciting, unexpected, and energetic week 6. So I'm doing all right. Ty, all things considered, how you doing?
I'm all right. The altar of Ty is the thing, by the way. Remember I told you I was feeling good last week?
True.
Of the 6 big games that we featured, I believe I went 4-0-1.
Wow.
And they canceled the whole LSU Florida game. Otherwise, it would have been 5-0-1.
Look at you.
Feeling pretty saucy here. We're entering that phase of the season, by the way, where if your team isn't one of the 11 that is still undefeated, you're basically rooting for all the other undefeated teams to lose.
Well, and chaos.
And chaos. Yeah, chaos is fun as well. What was your watch situation this weekend? Did you get a chance to imbibe all of the college football action?
I did, and I am worse off for it. I watched at home. I had 3 screens going. Watched with Richard Johnson and Roger Sherman of SB Nation. Parents came over for a little bit. Fiance's parents came over. Uncle came over for a little bit. Little brother, who's Washington alumnus and fan, came over to watch the Washington-Oregon game. So a hectic crowd, but all lovely people. No complaints. I had a good day.
Do you ever get the feeling in the pit of your stomach when you're watching?
Yeah.
And when you've got other normal people in the room? I'm not talking people in college football media with whom you normally watch, but I find myself quite often in the situation where I'm watching these games and I'm commandeering living rooms and I'm streaming on mobile devices to try and follow as best I can. Do you ever get the feeling that maybe you're just a bit off?
Yeah, all the time. That's my existence, Ty.
It's not just me.
No, first of all, it's 50 games happening over 12 hours on average. So trying to pay attention, covering this sport, and sort of making sense of things, and like, oh, here's a Piesman moment. Oh, here's a field being covered in trash. Oh, here's enough about Notre Dame's offense. Here is...
How dare you?
I know. I know you completely agree with me, so I don't. I know that isn't serious. Here is, this coach's face turning bright maroon. You're trying to keep up with moments. You're trying to keep up with, Purdue, Illinois is coming down to a last-minute field goal. Kansas State, Texas Tech is coming down to a last-minute Hail Mary. Here's a drive for this team to win. It's something that'll drive you insane in the best possible way. So yes, it does take it's knocking off like 0.3% of sanity every week in your life.
I feel like I'm a weirdo, and it's because I am, and I feel like other people, by the time week 6 rolls around and I'm doing these weekly gymnastics to try and pay attention to the games, I feel like at this point people start looking at me with the side eye, like, That notwithstanding, we had a great week 6.
Yeah, we did.
A lot going on. Let's get rolling. Let's play your reverbs. Here they are.
Hey, this is Daryl. I'm calling for the Insalube hotline. Now, Tennessee may be down, but don't worry, because we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. We're going to be just fine. You can take that to Insalube. We're going to be fine.
Howdy, Dan and Ty. This is Ryan from College Station.
What's up, fellas? This is Paul calling you from the heart of downtown Chicago.
Hi, this is Lizzie from Oakland.
Hi, Ty and Dan. This is Andrew in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada.
Hour number 5 of Tennessee A&M
By the time this game's over, we may have a new president.
I spent 1/3 of my life sleeping and another third watching Tennessee versus Texas A&M.
Just got done watching the Aggies defeat the Vols in double overtime, and all I've got to say is,
The magic stops in College Station. Woo!
It's really nice to see Kevin Sumlin, Texas A&M team, actually win a big game at home, despite actively trying to give the game away the entire second half.
A hypothetical question. Is it possible to have a luck runs out game in which you are nonetheless so lucky that you retain some hope of winning a national championship? Asking for a friend, a big orange friend.
Tennessee just scored to tie the game, and I can't help but wonder if this is the luckiest team we've seen since Auburn.
I know the Verby for half team of the year is usually given to an offensive or defensive unit, but could we just go ahead and get in an early nomination for the second half Vols?
What's been your favorite Tennessee fumble today?
Just got back from the A&M Tennessee game. Currently doing Google searches on how to rename my firstborn son Armani Watts.
Even on their bye week, Ole Miss is still more entertaining than 70% of college football. Thank you, Chad Kelly.
I'm an hour 34 without power thanks to Hurricane Matthew. I think it's time to talk to your kids about Armageddon. Kentucky Wildcats have won 2 SEC games in a row.
It's okay, Notre Dame fans. We all remember from last year that as long as it happens in a monsoon, it's a quality loss.
I haven't seen a Kaiser-led powerhouse lose this bad since World War I.
Kelly at Notre Dame is going to blame the center this week. Wonder when he figures out he's the problem.
Brian Kelly play calling in Hurricane Matthew like us Southern Californians drive when we get a light drizzle. Miserable.
General Mitch Trubisky was no match for the Foo Fighters in a monsoon.
Foster Fuente 2016, make Virginia Tech great again. Go Hokies.
Just watched my Pitt Panthers knock off Georgia Tech. I can't breathe. Chris Blewett, all he does is hit game-winning field goals against the Yellow Jackets.
Texas, Oklahoma, play that shootout button over and over. Just sit on it.
Texas should just change their motto to Texas, the turnover state.
Seeing surrender cobras from Oregon fans before halftime because they're getting murdered.
I'm outside Autzen Stadium staring at a chalk outline of a duck because someone just got murdered.
I hope you're having fun watching football. Dan, I am so sorry, and we are all here with you. Many, many fields from the Hart Place.
Yeah, I didn't watch a second of the Michigan-Rutgers game, so I was wondering what your favorite Rutgers first down was.
I'm leaving at halftime of this Rutgers game. We're losing by 43 points. And the only thing I have to say is that Jim Harbaugh eats his boogers.
It's not an Iowa-Minnesota classic unless there's a punt 2 minutes into the game.
Big Ten West football. Feel the excitement.
Guys, Michigan State got beat on every front of the game for the third week in a row. So, fantasy points for Dan.
First-time caller, and I just want it to be known that while BYU may have beaten Michigan State, BYU would never, ever disrespect Michigan State.
This is Chris calling from Minneapolis, where playoff dreams go to die. Go Navy!
Yeah, there they are. Okay. Happy time. Happy birthday to our good friend Taylor, who, as always, is our chief reverb engineer.
Total warrior. It is his birthday. So thank you Happy for all birthday, that you Taylor.
do to help us out, to help the show out, and to give our verballers a voice. Dan, where should we start here?
Let's start with Tennessee, Texas A&M. 2 undefeated teams in the SEC, both with designs on winning divisions of varying strength, playing a game that I think ended 7 minutes ago. It ended 7 whole minutes ago. So Texas A&M wins 45-38 in a couple overtimes in a game with all sorts of pretty and ugly things.
Freaking Tennessee. Again with this come from behind stuff.
Both literally and on like the box score and the scoreboard. They literally came from behind and punched out the game-winning run.
Somewhere there is a poor Tennessee fan, and you know it's true. You know there's a poor Tennessee fan with a heart condition thinking to his or herself, what the hell did I do to deserve this? Every freaking week. Again, They trail 28-7 early in the third quarter. Then they go on a charge. Alvin Kamara had a big game. Good for him.
A huge all-purpose day. Yeah.
In place of Jalen Hurd, who was out, Alvin Kamara got the lion's share of the workload. And he delivered. Josh Dobbs made some big throws, some key runs late in the game. Tennessee crawls all the way back, 35-35, just 41 seconds left. Then we go to overtime where they trade field goals, and Trevor Knight gets the touchdown run to put them up, and then Josh Dobbs follows it up by throwing a really bad interception. Tennessee had 7 turnovers.
Turnovers.
7 turnovers in this game.
Yeah.
Which is not going to cut it against top flight SEC competition. Still, they almost pulled this one off. They've got Alabama at home next week, which we'll discuss here momentarily. But I'm going to come back to something that I know I've been joking about, but it's starting to turn into something that's a little more serious. A&M 239 passing, 353 running. A huge game for Travion Williams, who, again, is the truth. But this is the advanced spread HD. This is the spread HD. What we're seeing here in College Station is a really balanced attack.
It is a super balanced attack, and Trevor Knight, who has struggled at times this year in sort of concert with the play calling, which has been questionable, gutty performance, I would say, pulled it out, made plays when it mattered, and it wasn't always pretty, but he willed them across the finish line. It was largely, I mean, look, Tennessee, I think they had 11 or 12 penalties. The turnovers were killer, and, they've had fumble luck leading up to this point, but Josh Dobbs, both on the ground and through the air, and you mentioned Alvin Kamara, the fact that Tennessee was in position to win this game after coughing up the ball as many times as they did.
It's crazy.
I don't understand. I mean, look,
crazy.
684 yards on a John Chavis defense, not to be all Jesse Palmer, but that's ridiculous. And once again, Texas A&M, some of the struggles from last year in stopping the run, and Myles Garrett certainly was hobbled in this game, but he did come out and play. And Josh Dobbs, I mean, the slow starts, Texas A&M jumps out to, it was 21-7, and I think 21-7 at halftime as well in the first quarter into halftime, scoreless second quarter. But Dobbs has a big second half. They just, man, as soon as you think Tennessee is dead.
Yep.
Texas A&M misses a potentially huge field goal to end regulation and punch out a Travion Williams run at the end. It was just a ridiculously long and exhausting game. I don't know how much
it's been a long season, dog.
I don't know how much we learned about either one of these teams.
Tennessee's got Bama this coming week in an interesting game. If I told
in Knoxville,
in Knoxville, if I told you that Tennessee's going to beat Alabama, would you have a difficult time believing that?
No, not entirely. I would really hope, and this is also, it should be mentioned, Tennessee was so beat up. 5 or 6 big-time players for the Vols were out in this game, including Jalen Reeves-Maben. And so if for some reason Tennessee is healthier against Bama, I'm totally fine with seeing Tennessee win that game.
It could happen.
In Knoxville. It's going to be a huge crowd. Tennessee has the pieces to do it. Also, really good news that Danny O'Brien, I think the defensive tackle who went down for Tennessee and was strapped to the stretcher and taken off the field, all limbs moving, and was reportedly flying home with the team last night. So always really, really positive to hear.
That was scary. Yeah, I was actually surprised that they covered that one, the CBS cameras did, as closely as they did. I was hoping for an extended commercial break because it was tough to watch, but glad to hear he's doing better. Tennessee's a good team. They're going to have their crack at Alabama this coming week. Alabama beat Arkansas by 19. I'll talk about that game in a second here, but A&M just keeps trucking along. I'm really impressed with A&M this year, how quickly the Boo Birds have gone away regarding one Kevin Sumlin. Remember, he was a guy coming into the season. Everyone was like, he might be on the hot seat this year. Got to turn things around. What kind of a quarterback can Trevor Knight be? We contributed a lot of that, in fairness, but he has delivered. This team is playing well. Offensively, certainly. On defense, it's been there all season. But if they keep on their current trajectory, they've got as good a shot as anyone of making the SEC West interesting and maybe eking their way into this whole playoff thing.
Extremely timely bye week as well.
Yeah. Okay. Alabama 49, Arkansas 30. Alabama averaged a little over 10 yards a play in this game. Jalen Hurts missed 4 passes, threw for 250.
He was ridiculous.
2 scores. Yeah. The most encouraging thing, the big thing to take away, and it's something we talked about on the Wednesday show, but if you are splitting hairs and trying to find something wrong with Bama, or at least an area where they need to improve, they were having a hard time finding big plays. And I said on Wednesday, this was a good shot for them to try and find those because Arkansas has had a propensity for allowing them all season. Lo and behold, they found them here. A lot of big plays out there, both in the running and passing game for Alabama. That should give them a ton of confidence now moving forward as they play a team like a Tennessee, who's obviously going to be a tough road opponent, pretty good defense, and offense that can score whenever they want to. Operative phrase, whenever they want to. So to see them kind of grow and mature and find some of those bigger explosion plays here against a quality opponent on the road, I thought was another positive step forward for Alabama.
Real quick, I'm just in the market. So if anybody's seen an Arkansas offensive line, I'm looking for it with, it can be used, but I need it with the protection being decent. I need decent, and I have not come across one this fall. So still in the market. Arkansas could not protect Austin Allen at all. Excuse me. He was under constant duress on the ground constantly. And to his credit, in a losing effort, and our pal Spencer Hall noted this, an ultimate in a losing effort game because he just kept throwing haymakers back. It wasn't going to be enough because they couldn't move the ball on the ground. The defense has way too many holes, especially up front. And you mentioned the big plays for Alabama. Damian Harris, Joshua Jacobs, and Ardarius Stewart all had their moments. And I really do think the big story, though, is Jalen Hurts. To go on the road to a tough place and to play with not only the type of efficiency, but the type of poise that he showed throughout that game with Alabama running a new type of offense. I was thoroughly impressed. It's not fun to be thoroughly impressed by Alabama, but it certainly was obvious to anybody who watched this game.
Yeah, they're good. The main takeaway, Alabama's really good, probably the best, and they're going to have a tough road test, though, this coming week against Tennessee, which we will, I'm sure, cover from as many different angles as we can. Looking forward to that one. But in the meantime, a 19-point win. Nice little cover here for Alabama on the road.
Yes.
Let's get to Navy.
Let's get to the United States Naval Academy.
Navy and Houston. I'm going to use this as my Navy sound because what the hell? Ooh-wee. Not exactly a boat race, but gosh, what a big upset. This was Navy 46, Houston 40. This goes without saying. Houston's now effectively eliminated from the playoff with this loss.
Pretty much.
That's a good bit of news for teams that are in Power 5 conferences, teams that might have one loss, or teams you might consider on the bubble, on the fray, but still in the conversation. Houston losing this game was a huge surprise, just because it seemed as if they had so much momentum.
Yeah, I mean, as a Notre Dame fan who's had his season waylaid by Navy in the past, I mean, in the back of some of our minds, you could see something like this happening. But no, against a Navy team that graduated Keenan Reynolds, and I don't know, was Will Worth the starter at the beginning of the season for Navy?
I don't think so.
I don't believe he was. And the fact that in a rainy stadium in Annapolis, Houston was both unable to stop the run, which is not a unique thing against Navy. It's a very difficult offense traditionally to play against for 4 complete quarters, but to not be able to run the ball. Greg Ward was pretty good on the ground, but the Houston rushing attack is beat up, and to not be able to control the ball, playing against a team who can control the ball if you give them the opportunity to, it's rough. Turnovers don't help. Greg Ward threw for a ton, but I think he had a couple fumbles and a couple picks, and you know, the really great playoff quality teams. It's not to say that Houston at their peak isn't playoff quality, but the teams that are able to weather the storm, no pun intended, are able to survive these games, are able to survive their own bad performances. And to Houston's credit, they almost did, but good for Navy for sort of putting it on the Cougars for 4 full quarters, a huge third quarter. And our pal Ryan Nanny had a good stat in this game. I don't believe any drive in this game ended with a punt. Every drive ended in a turnover or points, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, but one of the final possessions, maybe the final possession, Navy has the ball. All they really need to do is fall on it.
Mm-hmm.
Fumbled snap.
Yep. Yep.
I almost had a heart attack there, but Navy pulls it out. Good for them. Nice win.
And I don't think Houston, unfortunately, has a shot at the playoff, even though there's nothing to be ashamed of losing to Navy at Navy, but unless, their best hope is Louisville looking amazing and just blowing the doors off of Louisville. And even then, it feels much more like a New Year's Day game entry point than anything.
We're not going to get to see Tom Herman go undefeated, then leave Brian Kelly style.
Oh, that's right. We don't get the Brian Kelly.
Or somewhere else. Many of those programs we'll discuss here. But
do you think it's a deflation point for Herman saying, like, if he goes like 11-1?
No.
Like, I had an excellent season and again can't make it into the playoff. Is it a deflation point for Tom Herman? Does that move him closer to taking another job, even though it seemed like it was a thing, especially now with Texas losing, that he was going to pursue or at least listen to teams about anyway?
I think those 2 points are almost mutually exclusive.
Okay.
There's going to be so much pull from top elite jobs in college
no
football.
Matter how he feels about this season for Houston.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be tough to refuse those kinds of offers here. Let's move on. Let's go to Texas. Let's talk about the Red River Shootout, shall we?
Please.
We did mention accurately in the preview that this might be a true shootout.
A true Red River shootout.
It was just 14-13 at half in favor of Oklahoma, which had 3 first half turnovers. Second half, Oklahoma scores on 5 straight drives. A lot of big plays in this one, Dano. I counted what? Did I call you Dano? I'm sorry.
You did. It's okay. It's cool, Ty.
I counted 5 scoring drives in this one of longer than 40 yards. I believe we saw this coming, yes?
Yeah, it wasn't all. Let's not pat ourselves on the back too much. Like, oh, these two teams aren't going to play good defense for 4 quarters.
This was not advanced calculus.
No.
Right. No. But a lot of big plays here. Texas allowed 672 total yards.
Yeah.
3 straight weeks now that their defense has allowed over 500. Not a good look, but okay. Mm-mm. Huge game for Samaje Perine, who went over 200. He had 2 touchdowns. Bigger game for D.D. Westbrook, who hauled in 10 for 232 and 3 scores. Baker Mayfield with the big day. Pretty much everyone offensively for Oklahoma had a big day because, again, 672 total yards is going to do that. The difference in this game, other than Texas not being able to stop anyone, which is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Texas had opportunities here. 4 times they turned over Oklahoma, and they only got 3 points out of it. This is a close game, 45-40. Yeah. Obviously, I was right on my lock of the week.
Lock of the week.
As I pat myself on the back here, thank you very much.
You were very smart to throw those records out.
I did throw the records out. Yes, thank you.
Even though I think they had the same record going in.
They may have had the same record going in. Yeah. But that was the difference to me. Not being able to convert off turnovers is ultimately what sank Texas here, in addition to the whole defensive thing, which we've discussed ad nauseum at this point.
Yeah. Texas left way too much out on the fields, was not able to get a hand really on D.D. Westbrook, who is finally healthy for Oklahoma. He goes for 230 yards receiving. And the fun return of Samaje Perine was huge. And even though Texas was able to run the ball, they just weren't able to connect enough on deep balls. Shane Bichelle looking deep, had a couple bad drops. And yeah, it's the turnovers, it's the sloppiness. And if anybody comes out looking a little bit all right, it's Vance Bedford, who can now say, well, it wasn't totally my fault before, now was it? Only coaching defensive backs in this game. So Texas is struggling. Texas is once again struggling. I think the fact they were competitive in this game, the fact that they kept fighting and it was a back and forth until the end. Oklahoma did get fortunate near the end of the game that some of those fumbles. Joe Mixon, by the way, could not have had a sloppier game for the Sooners.
Not
so
good.
Something that will need to be cleaned up. Yeah, had a couple fumbles among multiple fumbles in this game. I think he fumbled the ball 3 times and lost a couple of them. So good news for Oklahoma is they made some nice plays on defense, even allowing the number of points that they did. The good news for Texas is they don't have to play Oklahoma again this season. And the Big 12 looks to be sort of a mess. They have Iowa State next week, which, by the way,
don't count your chickens before they hatch.
It's been 721 days now since Texas has scored a point against Iowa State. Iowa State nearly took down Baylor and Oklahoma State in consecutive weeks. So
they've been competitive. They've been competitive. They haven't gotten the job done, but they have been competitive against the Texas defense that's had a hard time stopping pretty much anybody. Yeah, don't count your chickens before they hatch there. We'll see. Okay. Florida State 20, Miami 19. You watch this game? You stay up for this?
I did watch this game like a young person would.
Unbelievable that this game would be decided again by something in the kicking game. Here's what happens. Basically, Brad Kaya drives Miami. They throw what appears to be a game-tying touchdown. All they need is the extra point to tie it at 20, and the extra point is blocked.
Yeah.
It's blocked. Another Florida State-Miami game that somehow is decided in the kicking game, and yet another team, Dan, that has ended up with 19 points.
You love your 19.
It has now happened 7 times in 6 weeks, about once a week. Clemson over Auburn, BYU when they lost to Utah, Ohio when they lost to Tennessee, and Charlotte did it in losing to Eastern Michigan. 2 weeks ago, we had UTSA losing 33-19 to Old Dominion. And then last week, Kansas lost to Texas Tech 44-19, and now Miami.
I'm very excited for Zac Efron to play a beleaguered podcaster in 19 again. It's gonna be pretty excellent. I will watch it on TBS. I am not going to front. I will watch that movie on TBS.
This is a great football game. I genuinely enjoyed this football game. Here's what stood out to me. First, Miami couldn't get anything going on the ground, and it was all on Brad Kaya. He had some big throws here. Dalvin Cook again came up really big in the Miami game, 150 on the ground. A huge 59-yard wheel route where somehow they forgot about him and he was wide open. And then last but certainly not least, DeAndre Francois. What a trooper in this game. Looked like he was down and out a couple times. Went in that little pop-up tailgating tent that they had for the training staff and came back, delivered in a big way. He said his teammates needed him. They did need him because when Sean McGuire came in, he was a hot mess. So DeAndre Francois, game ball to you, sir. Really nice game. Getting the job done on the road. Not an easy place to play in Miami. They used back. They were throwing stuff on the field again.
Yeah, a lot of trash, yeah.
Manny Diaz has the defense playing well. This is a high-quality Miami team that fell just a little bit short. It's unfortunate that it came down to a blocked extra point, but that's kind of the MO for this game.
Yeah, Seminole fans, even though they needed at the end a missed extra point to pull out this game, should be encouraged by DeAndre Francois and his ability to play through pain and just come out on top. Dalvin Cook, of course, had the big game. Miami's defense was pretty great. You mentioned Manny Diaz and the job he's done, but they were very good, save for a couple big plays from Dalvin Cook, both on the ground and through the air. But also want to credit Florida State's defense because Yerby and Walton have been very good this year, have huge talent, and they were essentially silenced for 4 quarters. Brad Kaya, even though he made those big throws, there was something about him because he took a couple big hits early. It's just off. He wasn't the Brad Kaya we're used to seeing, and maybe that's a competition thing this year. But Miami all around solid effort on both sides, and you wish it had gone to overtime and gotten to see more of both Francois and Kaya battling, but it was not to be. And also shout out to Corn Elder, who looks to be one of the best defensive players in the country right now, the Miami DB. So I think in terms of where Miami now stands in the ACC, I don't think it changes all that much. They looked very good. They couldn't pull it out at the end against a very talented Florida State team. And in the coming weeks, they have North Carolina, who knows? Week in, week out, what are we getting from North Carolina? Hopefully in better weather, we have a better answer. Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, and Pitt in the next few weeks. So a bunch of toss-up games from teams who have shown flashes of things.
Flashes, yes. Flashes of brilliance.
Yeah.
All right. Well, nice win for Florida State on the road to kind of get themselves back on track.
Definitely.
And, we'll see what the future holds in store for Miami, but this is a impressive effort, I thought, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. As you know, Dan, college football is a lot about recruiting, right? Yep. You got to get the right personnel in place. If you don't,
always,
your team's not going to go anywhere. So look, if you're a businessman, if you're trying to bring in talent, if you don't got like Ed Orgeron who can go out there and just recruit the top level talent to come to your place of employment or to your football program, you need something easy, perhaps somewhere that lets you post a job in one spot and then it kind of goes out to everywhere, all the top job sites. that might be out there on the interwebs that can really cast a wide net and bring in the best talent. That's what ZipRecruiter.com does. All right. You can post your job to 100 plus job sites, including social media networks like Facebook and Twitter, and do it all with a single click. Find the candidates in any city or industry nationwide. All you need to do is post it once and watch all the qualified candidates roll into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. So it's easy. There's no juggling emails or calls to the office. Quickly screen candidates, rate them, and hire the right person fast. They have been used by over 1 million businesses. And right now, if you are a Verballer, and if you are looking to post jobs, you can try ZipRecruiter for free.
Boom.
Try them for free. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/sportsfan. You're a sports fan if you're listening to this show.
True, I am.
ZipRecruiter.com/sportsfan. One more time, you can try it for free. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/sportsfan.
Do it. Let's continue.
Let's continue, Dan.
It's raining sideways. It's gonna rain. It's raining sideways.
I could just keep hitting this, Dan.
Yeah, make the pain go away.
Let's start with a game that actually mattered.
Okay.
Virginia Tech 34, UNC 3, I believe.
Lock of the week.
Both members of this broadcasting duo had the audacity and the wherewithal and really the keen foresight to look at this game and say, we like Virginia Tech.
I believe we had this, even though we did not anticipate the weather. Yes.
The elements clearly played a factor. Not nearly to the extent of Notre Dame, North Carolina State, but definitely had an effect on the UNC passing game. General Mitch Trubisky, just 13 of 33 for 58 yards and 2 interceptions, Dan. Not a good look for North Carolina offensively. 2 of 14 on third downs, 131 total yards and 3 points. That's the lowest output ever during the Larry Fedora era at North Carolina. Meanwhile, Virginia Tech did what it needed to do. They forced 4 turnovers here. They did enough on the ground to lengthen their lead and, more importantly, convert off those turnovers. And so this is what you get here. 34-3, a really impressive win for Virginia Tech as they pull away in the second half. I will say, and this is just me, the most exciting element of this game was Ray Bentley, the announcer, his hair.
Oh, I didn't see this.
It's like he wants to go Mike Gundy with it. He's got a little situation going in the back, but it's not at the point yet where he's fully committed to it yet.
Right.
It's only week 6. We don't know where it's going to go yet, but that to me was really the storyline here. This game was kind of a runaway train, like late in the second half.
So, and I'm sure you'll agree with me on this. In a game with conditions that were as overwhelming weather-wise as things were in Chapel Hill, also obviously as they were in Raleigh, Annapolis, all along the Mid-Atlantic region yesterday. I don't think it's a referendum on, oh, well, Mitch Trubisky is bad, or there's bad Mitch Trubisky and good Mitch Trubisky. I think it's much more a referendum on, okay, we know we have a good sense that the weather is going to be very bad. This is our bad weather game plan. This is our, there will be turnovers, there will be weird special teams plays, there will be an inability to grip a ball, throw a ball, pitch a ball situation. And Virginia Tech and Justin Fuente and Bud Foster passed with flying colors. And even though Gerard Evans wasn't particularly efficient on the level that he has been, I don't even think he completed 50% of his passes, Virginia Tech was just cleaner. They just executed better. They just looked like the better prepared team to win in a number of ways. They left less out on the field. I'm trying to figure out what my English is at this point. But, you know, even though they lose a couple, I think they lost a couple fumbles, both teams did. It was just Virginia Tech was there to be less messy. And North Carolina, and you, again, can look at the stat line of Mitch Trubisky. I choose to look at it as sort of a sitcom thing where Mitch Trubisky has a twin and Mitch Trubisky had a hot date and he had his twin brother, Matt Trubisky, come in and try to play quarterback. Like, hey, just hand it off a bunch. You'll be fine.
Like a Freaky Friday scenario?
Yes.
Okay.
But unfortunately, Mitch Trubisky, even in bad weather, did not pass the what's it called? The wingspan test that I have. You hold out your arms both directions if you're around 6 feet tall, 1.8 yards per attempt. He did not meet that. So I'm sure you have thoughts as it relates to another game and the weather that was on hand, but completely impressed by Virginia Tech moving forward, that they can win even in a bad atmosphere on the road with things out of their control. And they go to the Carrier Dome this coming week, so a lot easier to figure things out in terms of adversity. But good for Va Tech, who now slides in, I think, squarely into the number 3 spot behind Clemson and Louisville in the sort of power rankings in the ACC.
I like Virginia Tech a lot, Dan.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough for me to pump the brakes on the Hokies here, but I'm liking what I'm seeing. Gerard Evans has been real good. The defense has been very solid from top to bottom. Bud Foster and the Lunch Pail defense have definitely delivered. So I don't know. We'll see. I didn't expect this kind of game. I didn't expect the weather to play the factor that it did in this game, but clearly it worked for Virginia Tech. They were able to get the job done and convert off turnovers.
Yes.
Okay. Speaking of games,
It's raining sideways.
the NC State Notre Dame game.
Okay, so we've got unranked teams.
2 unranked teams.
2 unranked teams. Have we hit all of the games between ranked teams?
Probably not. I don't know.
No. We between 2 ranked teams.
Okay. Yeah, we hit
I
those.
believe we have.
I would say of all the tweets that I saw, your own Roger Sherman said it best on Twitter.
Which was?
He said that this was the best game of the day because it wasn't really football. And
That's true.
I couldn't agree more. No offensive touchdowns, 5 turnovers, a shade over 300 total yards between both teams. This was a disaster. They should not have played this game. There were people who listened to this show, namely Dave and Carter Finley, who's listened to us forever, who was at the game, who invited me down and offered to put me up for this game.
You should have gone, Ty. I should have been in a monsoon game.
No, never. He said this game shouldn't have been played. You watched it on TV. It was apparent to see why it shouldn't have been played.
Voluntary evacuation at halftime. Dave Doran, afterwards, he said that they literally had a, quote, monsoon package in which they used Jalen McClendon, their backup quarterback. There is nothing you can take away from this game. And it sort of worked.
It did sort of work, but there's nothing that you can take away from this game. I admire NC State's resolve in fighting through this one. I'm not sure how much you can take away. We'll find out more from them next week on the road at Clemson.
I'm ready to take some things away from this game. Deshaun Kaiser throwing the ball 26 times when you can't complete passes because of the weather. That's a little
Notre Dame can't run. They can't run, Dan.
I know, but it's not that Notre Dame was able to run the ball. They clearly weren't. Josh Adams and Kaiser, I think, both had 14 or 15 carries, and it didn't mean all that much. It was more and again, I will never fault a team for being unable to move the ball with any sort of consistency or efficiency in conditions. It was monsoon conditions. It was muddy, and even still, the field, for all things considered, was okay.
It was puddling.
It could have, I'm saying they could have had been ankle deep. They weren't.
Okay.
So
that's a low
within
bar,
that context,
but okay.
Within that context, I would have liked to see Notre Dame have a monsoon package. You know what I mean? Like just like a plan that didn't involve throwing the ball almost 30 times in an impossible situation to throw and run routes and catch balls. I don't know what that is. I go back to what Baylor was able to do last year when all the quarterbacks got hurt. There was something in place.
Well, they've had a hard time adjusting game plans this year on offense. 26 throws? Guys couldn't hold on to the ball. They couldn't even see the ball.
No.
Let alone hold on to it. And then they couldn't run when they had to, which has been a recurring theme all season long for Notre Dame. So I don't know what's going on. Brian Kelly, now he's taking the blame for it, I saw. Apparently it's him.
Oh, okay. It was the snapper yesterday.
Who knows what's going on here? It's just kind of a mess.
Yeah.
Top to bottom at Notre Dame. They got to get it together in a hurry. Otherwise, they're not going to make a bowl game either.
I'm going to read you the results of every drive, not just Notre Dame drives in this game. Are you ready?
Yes, please.
Punt, missed field goal, I didn't say I was going to sing it, but here we are. Punt, field goal, punt, fumble, fumble, interception, punt, downs, end of half, downs, field goal, fumble, downs, punt, touchdown, fumble, punt, downs, end of game.
Great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Notre Dame loses 10-3 in a game that was dreadful from a football standpoint, but kind of fun to watch, I guess, if you weren't a fan of either team and just liked watching ridiculously goofy conditions out there on the football field. This was sort of your game. Where else should we go? You want to talk about Washington, Oregon?
That's the life being sucked out of me.
70-21, huh?
Yes. 70-21. And let's start with this. Washington's really good. Washington's really, really good. Myles Gaskin had huge runs. Jake Browning was incredibly efficient, accounted for, I believe, 8 total touchdowns, which is not bad, Ty.
No.
It's not bad no matter who you're playing.
Not bad.
I don't care if it's a Brady Hoke defense. I don't care if it's an FCS school. 8 touchdowns accounted for is significant. Dante Pettis was great and unguardable, as was John Ross, the big receivers. Washington defensively, even though they allowed a good amount of yards at times and some longer drives, came up with turnovers, came up with stops, came up with big plays. Washington looks every bit the top 10, top 5 team that is what they're associated with right now. And to go to Autzen, and it's not difficult to get pumped up for a rivalry game. But Autzen, especially early on when the game was like a 21-7 game where it was still sort of in doubt, Autzen was pretty loud, pretty hostile. Oregon fans want to see Oregon pummel the Huskies just as bad as Washington fans want to see the Huskies end the streak, which it was ended emphatically. Difficult place to play. Washington showed up as the calmer team, the more poised team, the team much better able to execute, that team that looked like they had a plan. Whereas Oregon, starting a true freshman who actually looked pretty promising at times, just in terms of how quickly he was able to make decisions, extend the play, throw downfield a little bit. I came away impressed within the context of what Justin Herbert was able to do. But Oregon from top down is a failure of 2016. That's what they are. And the effort was lacking in certain places, both from the coaching staff and from the team itself. And just from the onset, it was a fumbled kick return. It was a quick pick. Couple quick 3-and-outs. It is just a team that arrived unprepared to compete. And not just this week, but this year because of recruiting classes and coaching hires and execution. And a lot of Oregon fans are quick to jump on Mark Helfrich and Brady Hoke. Mark Helfrich decided to hire Brady Hoke and move to a 4-3. This was a team recruited to a 3-4. This is a team devoid of a lot of talent at specific places on that defense. Brady Hoke has a coaching staff that was given to him. These are not his dudes. Not to make excuses for Brady Hoke because he's in charge of a defense that got walloped. But Oregon, as they are constituted in early to mid-October, having lost, I believe, their 4th straight, is a failure.
So let me ask you this.
It's a failed state.
A failed state, thank you. What's going on with Mark Helfrich now at the end of the year? Do you think he's gone?
I think losing to Washington as a top 5 team, there's certainly nothing to be ashamed about with that. The end of the streak is not anything anybody at Oregon wants to see, or wanted to see. But getting 70 hung on you and showing just a lack of competition and ability to adjust and to let things get out of hand that quickly. Because this is a Washington team that didn't pull away from Arizona a couple weeks ago, and we can talk about Stanford momentarily. And Ty, and everybody listening, I can't tell you how little I want to talk about this Oregon team, but I keep going, and I promise it's going to end momentarily. As it relates to his job security at the end of the year, if there are more games like this, and they're not going to get 70 hung on them every week, but if there is, whether it's Cal, whether it's Arizona State, whether it's Oregon State, whether it's Stanford, any of the teams left on their schedule, USC, these are all flawed teams. They don't have any more Washingtons on their schedule. If they lack the competitive fire that they lacked in this game, and that, the second quarter, third quarter, when the game was relatively in doubt, he'll be gone.
Yeah.
If they go 3-9, just it'll look like something that can't be overcome. It'll continue to look like they need new blood. If they compete, if they lose games 35-34, if they lose the way that they lost to Colorado and Nebraska, we'll see. I think there'll be huge changes no matter what at the end of the year. And I hope, by the way, that I'm going on this long rant and Mark Helfrich isn't fired an hour and a half after we finish recording, like what happened with Les Miles. But if they are run away from every week for the rest of the year, I could not present a case to keep him.
Yeah. Okay. Couldn't have said it better myself. All right.
Also, and this is one more thing.
Yeah,
and it's
please,
not about
please.
Oregon.
Go as long as you like, Dan.
It's not about Oregon. At this point, we are now through week 6, early to mid-October. The most productive thrower in the country, not overall talented quarterback, but the most productive thrower as it relates to somebody that plays for a Power 5 school that has played decent competition. Jake Browning is the most productive, most impressive quarterback of the 2016
He's been very
season.
good. Games like this help, for sure. Okay. Second sponsor. Every guy looks better in a suit.
Yeah.
Indochino. It's one of the largest made-to-measure menswear brands out there. They make it easy for guys to get a great-fitting, high-quality suit and shirts at an incredible price. We had one gentleman write in, say, I just bought a suit using your offer code. Great price. I'm excited to see it. I won't ask him to send in a picture of himself in that suit because that'd be weird. We're not weird people like that, but I hope it works for you. I hope you'll tell us about your experience. I hope he'll tell everyone about your experience. Indochino.com is where you need to go. Here's the way it works. You can either go to their website or drop by one of their 9 North American showrooms. You can pick from hundreds of fabrics and patterns. Choose whatever customizations you want, whether it's on the lapel or pleats or jacket lining, whatever. All you need to do is identify what it is you'd like to customize and then submit your measurements. Within 4 weeks, you're going to get the most stylish suit you've ever worn from Indochino.com. This week, any Solid Verbal listener can get a premium Indochino suit for just $389.
Nice.
That's like a 50% savings, Dan. Indochino is spelled INDOCHINO.com. You get that suit for just $389 by entering the code SOLID at checkout. SOLID. Shipping is free. Your satisfaction is guaranteed or your money back. Again, it's Indochino.com. Use the code SOLID for any premium suit at $389 plus free shipping. You'll never have to worry about a badly fitting suit or an expensive trip to the tailor ever again. Get ready to look like $1 million with Indochino.
People will go to great lengths to find a perfectly fitting suit. I know this because my friend Nathan this past week told me what he went through to get a very well-fitting suit. And Indochino does a great job making it very simple. He went to a custom suit shop, and they said, okay, walk into this like studio room area.
Yep.
And strip down, and we are going to take pictures of your body from various angles to sort of see the contours and like
this is
see
real.
How
this is real.
100% real.
Whoa!
To see the contours, to see like the angle at which your shoulders are sort of stationed, to sort of just get everything precise. And so he walked into this studio, which is equipped with like lights and cameras, everything to sort of get his body at every angle. And he walked in, he had taken off his clothes. He was just in his underwear, like boxer briefs, whatever. And a voice on the loudspeaker, this is no joke, Ty, said, "No, we're going to need those off too." And he stripped those off. He stripped the boxer briefs off. And he said, at which point, no joke, 20 cameras and flashbulbs.
This is a real story?
This is a 1,000% real story. 20 cameras that were stationed at every angle around him, like in an orb, and flashbulbs went off to get every single contour of his body. And that, if that is needed to get a great suit,
count me out.
Count me as a huge fan of Indochino. Yeah, full nude. Those pictures exist. So
how much is he paying for that suit?
It's under $1,000, but it's definitely more than Indochino.
That's a lot of pride going out the door right there.
I think it's $700 or $800.
Good hell.
So Indochino's getting you a deal and saving you a bunch of publicly nude time.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
On that note.
Yes.
Let's go to the Big Ten.
Let's do that.
Penn State 38, Maryland 14, a de facto Big Ten rivalry, Dan. Maryland couldn't stop the run. They couldn't run themselves. Saquon Barkley, my boy Say, 31 carries, 202, 1 touchdown, a bunch of sick moves out there.
Yeah.
He's real good. Trace McSorley, 18 carries, 81 yards on the ground, a touchdown. Rushing, also 2 touchdowns and 152 passing. He looked pretty good in this game. And if he continues to develop, I know I've had choice words for one Trace McSorley. He looked really good in this football game. If he continues developing, he could be really, really good in this offense.
Dual threat.
There's no doubt about it. He looked good, Dan.
Yeah, I won't mention any names, but somebody I know, somebody that I may or may not podcast with, said, man, this just feels like a 3-point game. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Now, you were right about Trace McSorley in terms of his development and how much better he's gotten as a starter. Saquon Barkley looked great. Joe Moorhead, I thought, called a really nice game. This game was on mute on a small screen in my place, but from what I could tell, Penn State was moving the ball. It certainly didn't help that Perry Hills went out. Very encouraging, I believe. Does Penn State have Ohio State coming up?
Penn State has Ohio State coming up, yeah. I don't think they're going to beat Ohio State.
Are they gonna be any more healthy on defense?
I certainly hope so. If they're not, it's going to be a short game, Dan.
Yeah.
But okay, yeah, good for them.
Should also jump in real quick with Joe Moorhead, new Penn State offensive coordinator, his current running back and his former running back, Chase Edmonds at Fordham, combined yesterday to rush for, I'm going to get the number wrong because I don't have the Fordham box score in front of me, but well over 500 yards.
Nice.
Yeah, big day for Joe Moorhead. He tweeted out congratulations to Chase Edmonds too.
You mentioned Ohio State. They won by 21 over Indiana. Not an inspired effort through the air for JT Barrett.
Windy day. He was only like 9 for 21, but he ran for 140-ish on like 25, 26 carries. So a nice game for Ohio State, just from the standpoint of they had to adjust in order to win. They did so. Indiana still secretly decent. They didn't have the horses to run with Ohio State for 4 quarters, but I thought early played this one pretty well. They were within 7. You know, Indiana's a good team. They're going to beat some teams in the Big Ten, just not good enough to outclass an Ohio State or hang with them for 4 quarters. Yeah, a little bit worried as somebody who's watched Urban Meyer offenses for a long time that JT Barrett ran the ball 26 times. We saw what happened to Braxton Miller at the end of his career, just in terms of how much he was counted on. Mike Weber's super good. Very, very just excited to watch Mike Weber run more. Curtis Samuel busted out some bigger runs when he was given the opportunity in the backfield. And I think the story of this game is Indiana. And I don't think it's Ohio State struggling, Ohio State starting slow, it was windy, JT Barrett never got in a rhythm through the air. All true things. Indiana played very good defense, all things considered, against Ohio State. Ohio State had a couple of very short fields. I think they had a 2-yard touchdown drive and a 5-yard touchdown drive. So in terms of what Indiana's defense allowed when the game was in doubt, was like 2 touchdowns. Like Indiana's defense, Tom Allen and the job he's done with the Hoosier defense is legitimately quite impressive. A huge jump up from where Indiana has been. And offensively, play calling was a little bit weird, relied on the run perhaps a little bit too much against a pretty nasty Ohio State defense, but it's sort of pick your poison. But if we're going to have a conversation about improved teams, Wake Forest is right there, oddly enough. If we're going to talk about Indiana as well.
Colorado
is certainly one of those teams. Iowa State, even though it's not showing up in the win-loss column, they're doing things against good teams. Iowa State.
Yeah.
Indiana should scare pretty much everybody in college football, which is not a thing. And I'm not saying that they're going to the top 15, top 20 team, but they are taking big steps forward, and I like seeing that. We root for coaches who have been on the show.
We do. We root for upstart teams. I also think Rutgers is in that category.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh.
Do you have the sound, Ty? Sorry to jump in. Do you have the sound of the please stop, he's already dead?
I don't have that one at my fingertips. I do have this one.
Guess who just got
Murdered. I don't think that's good enough.
No.
I don't think that's appropriate enough because of the degree to which it, we will play that song, we'll play that sound for a 52-17 game. We'll play that sound for 45-20, 45-13, whatever. 78-0 with, I think, 1 first down. There it is. Thank you.
He's already dead.
I found it.
That's what I was looking for. I appreciate it, Ty. That's why you're the best. Give me your thoughts on this game.
78-0, Michigan wins. At one point, pardon my French, just to be a dick, Jim Harbaugh went for 2, up 28, and got it, just like he did a year ago. They outgained Rutgers 600-39. Rutgers was 0 for 17 on third downs. Michigan went for a casual 481 on the ground. There was nothing close about this game. It was over literally before it started. And, Michigan now on a collision course with Ohio State. This is what this amounts to. If you look elsewhere in the Big Ten, some interesting programs, but I don't think anyone's got the firepower to compete with either Michigan or Ohio State. It's going to come down to those two last week of the season.
You're absolutely right. I think Michigan is now the ESPN, whatever their power index is. They're the number 1 team.
Okay.
Michigan was a yard short of having 300-yard runners. Jabril Peppers was brilliant as always in everything that he did. And one of the things that should be noted, other than the fact that Rutgers has now gone 2 weeks without scoring a single point, is when you look at the degree to which Michigan stepped on the gas, I think it might be important to look at which non-Midwestern state Michigan is looking to build a recruiting fence around, and which school perhaps had a number of top recruits visiting for a game against Michigan this weekend. And I think there's always, if you're wondering why somebody did something to a certain extent or in a weird direction from a coach, it's generally recruiting. And I do not fault Michigan at all for doing what they did. But man, John O'Korn started the second half. I think he only threw 1 or 2 passes. They had a backup fullback scoring a touchdown. They had, it was just brutal to watch.
Brutal game.
I don't know what Rutgers does.
Yeah. Well,
Boston College plays defense most weeks. I don't know what Rutgers does.
Yeah. Well, nice win for Michigan.
Hope they improve.
Yeah. BYU beat Michigan State.
What is going on?
Mama H called me out for this pick on Thursday morning. Because on Wednesday I said I like BYU outright. And she said I was crazy. So we bet lunch on the game. I didn't even want the points, Dan. I told her
lunch.
Look, yeah, lunch, because we go to lunch sometimes. We're close enough. And I said, we'll bet a lunch on this game.
Oddly enough, my mom literally just sent me a text canceling lunch.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Lunch is canceled in New York.
But I told Mama H, take the points, throw them out. I didn't even want 6-7 points. I wanted the Cougs straight up, and I got them. And they won. This was Michigan State's now 3rd straight loss. The Notre Dame stink is real, Dan. It's real. And I finally figured out the proper way to articulate it.
Yeah.
It is like being sprayed by a skunk.
Yeah.
That's what this is. Just an ugly offensive showing for Michigan State. They yanked Tyler O'Connor in the 4th quarter. Taysom Hill, Jamal Williams, they took over in the second half. BYU is now 3-3.
Yeah, tough schedule.
The quest for 20, that was fun, but it's over.
Yes.
In fairness, though, their 3 losses to Utah, UCLA, and West Virginia have been by a combined 5 points. They've got Mississippi State at home next Friday, in a weird game.
We should hope BYU wins that game.
Definitely winnable. They go to Boise in November, which could be interesting. BYU's a good team. This is the kind of team I would keep under your hat for bowl season, because they're going to end up playing someone. You're going to look at their record and say 8-4, 7-5,
right?
Something like that. How good is this team really? This is a good football team. They've played good competition. They've been dealing with an entirely new coaching staff, but a lot of talent here. I still think a lot to like. Probably a much better team than the record will indicate at season's end. So just keep BYU in a nice, safe place for your bowl pool.
Has Boston College against an ACC team? Somebody tweeted us this because we no longer have the quest for 20 for BYU. So they scored 14 against Georgia Tech, 0 against Virginia Tech. Georgia Tech was 14. Clemson, they scored 10. Last year, how many points did they score? I'm looking at their schedule last year and their ACC point totals. 0, 7, 0, 17, 14, 10, 8, 16, 17.
Wow.
So they're yet to score 18 points in the last year. I'm looking at the year
20.
before.
It lives.
I think it may live because, they have not, since last year, they have not scored 20 points against an ACC team. So I think we sort of reinvigorate the quest for 20. We are re-energized. BC quest for 20.
Next week, we'll do it.
Also, in case you're wondering, because you brought up the Notre Dame skunk stink, NC State has Louisville and Clemson in successive weeks, so it probably doesn't matter for NC State at this point.
Okay. Iowa beat Minnesota by 7. Purdue, as you mentioned,
barely
beat Illinois in overtime, 34-31.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go back to the Big 12. You mentioned Oklahoma State. They edge out Iowa State. They needed to come from behind in this one. At one point, they were down 14, 31-17. Mason Rudolph, another comeback effort for him. He's got a bit of a history now for doing that. In this case, he just kept throwing to our boy Junkyard Jim Washington, who survived certain doom when he got clobbered a week ago against Texas. In this one, he had something like 8 for 150 receiving. Iowa State, by the way, you mentioned them before, but they're 1-5, but they've been competitive. They're on the road.
Feisty.
They're on the road next week against Texas. I'm confident in saying that Texas will probably break their scoreless streak against Iowa State.
721 days at the moment, yes.
But I am not confident in saying that they'll win. Iowa State's been downright competitive.
Yeah, Matt Campbell, man.
Yeah. So good on Oklahoma State and Mason Rudolph for leading that comeback effort.
Yes. TCU almost lost to Kansas.
Yeah,
again.
Eight turnovers. They were outgained.
Kansas was driving to win this game at the end of regulation, but could not make a Hail Mary happen. So good for TCU, I guess, and a very strange year for the Horned Frogs. Kansas State, a very quiet 3-2. They beat Texas Tech. Patrick Mahomes did start and, of course, went on a tear, but Kansas State survived, sort of set up a simpler offense than usual for Ertz and Charles Jones, who had a nice day, and they hang on, and Texas Tech unable to get their own Hail Mary off.
Yeah, K-State's offense got the ball 5 times in the first half.
Yeah.
The only time that Tech stopped them was at the end of the half when K-State willingly took a knee to run out the clock.
Nothing all that fancy from Kansas State, but a nice win nonetheless after giving away the West Virginia game.
Patrick Mahomes, 504 in the losing effort.
Man, feel so bad for that guy.
Auburn, 38. Mississippi State, 14. Where are we at with Auburn? Because I saw some people say secretly decent, surprisingly decent. I would say confusingly decent. I have no idea what to make of Auburn.
I'd say I'm cautiously willing to call them pretty good and say, listen, it is a reality that teams improve over the course of the season. Shaun White has looked much better these past 2 or 3 weeks.
He really has. For all the crap I gave him,
not
he's
great
a lot better.
Competition. I think it's reasonable to say.
Sure.
But against Mississippi State, if we're going to consider Mississippi State a lost boy of 2016, yes,
sure, why not?
They're up 35-0 at the half. Auburn ran all over them. Petway had a nice day. Shaun White was just incredibly efficient. The defense was storming Mississippi State at all points. Did not let them do anything. Didn't let them have really much on the ground. Certainly nothing through the air. And Auburn now comes out of this looking like a team that will compete week in and week out. They have an Arkansas team at home that they can beat. They have a week off before that game. They go to Ole Miss, which, you're getting good and bad at equal moments with Ole Miss, but It's probably a tough game and probably a loss, but Vandy, Georgia, they finished with Alabama on the road, obviously in the Iron Bowl. They have it's Alabama A&M later on in the season, but at 4-2 right now, I mean, we could 9-3 Auburn team that saves Gus Malzahn, buys him some time.
It's
8-4
on the table.
Promising. Yeah.
It's on the table. All right. Also, what do we got here? Kentucky beat Vandy 20-13. Good for them. And Georgia, South Carolina, you might remember, was moved to today, Sunday, at time of recording around 2:30. So we'll report back on that one when we do our Wednesday show. Elsewhere in the ACC, Clemson ran it up on Boston College by 46. Pitt edged out Georgia Tech at the gun on a field goal.
Heisman moment for Pitt, by the way. A beautiful called play for, I want to say, a guard, Brian O'Neill. God, I wish I would study these things ahead of time, but I believe that's his name, on a nice pass. Not a pass, a called run, because it was a backwards pass, and he just ran down the sideline, I believe untouched, didn't drop the ball until he was 8 yards deep into the end zone, like a disciplined,
like a
player who appreciates success does.
Yeah.
And by the way, you sort of skipped over Pitt quickly. They looked amazing physically, like their uniforms, the throwback look. I loved it.
Awesome. Yeah.
The sort of baby blue and yellow.
Should be an every week thing. Yeah. I agree.
Love it.
And Wake won again. Now 5-1. They could be on the secretly decent list as well. They beat Syracuse 28-9. Nice to see Wake getting some wins again. And then finally, let's round out the show by talking about the other action in the Pac-12. We've been sitting on this Washington State-Stanford game for a while. But wow, 42-16, the Cougars over the Cardinal. Wazoo did not allow offensive points until the final play of this football game, Dan. It would appear as if Washington State actually played defense here.
I think they've allowed the fewest points of any team in the Pac-12 against Pac-12 teams at this point. And offensively, they outrushed Stanford this week after walloping Oregon last week, outrushing the Ducks. It is a more complete and more realized vision of a Wazoo than I think anybody ever thought Mike Leach would accomplish. Just in terms of how much more balanced they look on offense this season, what the defense, and the defense looked at times very, very good last year. That's not fully new for the Cougs, but to go to Stanford, and I think it's a combination of Wazoo being really good or having the potential to play really well, and Stanford being not good. Stanford might just be not good. Christian McCaffrey, when everybody knows he's getting the ball, if you take away his biggest run, it was something like 7 carries for 12 yards. Like, what? I lose my ability.
Stanford's line was outclassed by Washington State, because the calling card for Stanford over the years has been their offensive line. They've been really good. They didn't have it.
They have just not been able to weather injuries. The quality depth has just not been there for Stanford. They've been beat up on defense and taken advantage of. Luke Falk had another nice game. And things change, man. That's just how life works. Washington is the clear class of the Pac-12. Stanford and Oregon are trending downward, perhaps one of them quicker than the other. But that's the new reality. Utah looked good.
Dare we say a meaningful Apple Cup at the end of the year?
I would argue that the Apple Cup at this point is one of the 5 biggest games left on the college football schedule.
Wow.
Would you disagree? In terms of a combination of meaning, because you look at Washington's schedule moving forward and there's not much to it.
Well, you've got Michigan, Ohio State.
Ohio State, definitely.
You've got Alabama A&M.
Alabama, Tennessee, sure.
What else do you got? You've got LSU.
Florida State, Clemson,
yeah. You've got, I still think, Louisville, Houston.
In terms of quality of play, yeah, that's not a difficult argument.
It might be in the conversation, yeah. I could see it. I mean, you're forgetting about Notre Dame, USC, but that's, I understand how you'd forget about that one.
That was implied, Ty.
Yeah.
That was just implied as being there.
Very meaningful Apple Cup.
Yeah.
Let's leave it at that. You mentioned that Utah looked pretty good.
Yes, the first half was garbage for the Utes, just sloppy and undisciplined play all around. But the fact that they pulled it out, they were coached well, able to move the ball. I think they had their first 100-yard rushing game of the season for running back, so that's a thing. Arizona struggled, made some weird decisions. Brandon Dawkins, God bless him, played beat up. Oregon State ran all over Cal.
Won in overtime. Good for them.
Good to see some life out of Oregon State. Only watched a little bit of that game. UCLA. UCLA cannot help but to regress to being the stereotype of UCLA.
Yeah, I saw Jim Mora.
It's a weird way to describe it, I know.
Jim Mora quoted, quote, he's taken some horrible hits because we can't protect for him.
Right.
He's, of course, talking about Josh Rosen, who hurt both his leg and his shoulder.
Not great.
In this one. He's taken a lot of big hits this year. UCLA lost 23-20 against ASU. ASU might not really be that great either. So this was not a good showing for UCLA. And then that brings us to USC against Colorado, Dan.
Yeah.
USC with 4 turnovers, but Sam D. Arnold looks very legit. Another strong showing for him. Colorado drops to 4-2 now. I don't look at the remaining schedule and think that they're outclassed in any of their remaining games. They're probably going to go to a bowl game, which is going to be great. But I guess the biggest story for me here is really USC turning the ship around.
Yeah. I'm mixed. What did they turn the ball over 5 times?
4.
At least 4 or 5 times. Yeah, they turned the ball over 4 times, and it's Sam D. Arnold giveth, and he taketh away a little bit. He fumbles it a couple times in key spots. I mean, he found, I think that he liked the tight end a lot. He found Juju Smith-Schuster a lot bit. But USC could not pull away from this game. Their third quarter was pretty abysmal offensively in terms of leaving potential plays out on the field. Colorado looked lost. They made a nice move in the second half. But I don't see it from USC in terms of like where they should be at home. And we're willing to believe Colorado is a pretty good team, that they deserve their ranking. But USC still left too much on the field.
All right. And
we hope Justin Davis gets better.
Yes. And finally, Boise State beat New Mexico 49.
They beat him down, Ty.
Yeah. They beat him
Look at the score after the first half.
That game was a runaway train. Yeah.
Yeah, Brian Harson's doing a fantastic job with Brett Rippon. I think he threw 5 touchdown passes and almost 400 yards in the first half. So Boise State is in a nice position now that Houston's out to sort of keep moving up. I don't think they're going to get playoff consideration because of last season, but they're going to keep moving up. I'm going to look at their schedule right now because I've been very impressed with Boise thus far this season.
They're good. They're very good. The problem is that they won't really have a chance to showcase it, but they're a good football team.
BYU and Air Force look to be the big ones.
Yep.
So that's where we're at right now. San Diego State won, and I think they moved to 4-1. Memphis continues to have success even without who, Ty?
Justin Fuente.
They take down my Owls. UConn with a very nice win at home against Cincinnati. I know you miss Bob Diaco, so I just want to make sure you know he's okay.
Yeah.
Willie Taggart moves to 5-1 with South Florida. Eastern Michigan unfortunately goes down, but Toledo, rocket to the moon. Toledo is very good. They're not great, but they're very good, all things considered, with a first-year coach. PJ Fleck, row that boat, 6-0, Ty.
6-0, okay.
You want to start talking about PJ Fleck in Western Michigan? Possible future Oregon coach?
Possible future
Zach
Notre
Terrell?
Dame coach, yeah.
Future Notre Dame coach?
Oh,
a great day for Zach Terrell. Terrell. They've got secretly one of probably the best 3 or 4 receivers in the country in Corey Davis. Ty, what I'm trying to tell you is row that boat. I am a Bronco believer, and that if Western Michigan is undefeated going into that Toledo game, I think the Friday after Thanksgiving, I will be glued to it. 100% I'm glued to that game.
All right. Lehigh, Fordham, Princeton, and the Nellies of Bucknell in a close win in the Patriot League.
I think it was Lafayette who Fordham ran all over, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that hurt. It hurt.
All right. That's all I have, Mr. Rubenstein.
I think that's everything I have. I'm going to ask you a question that we talked about on Wake Up College Football.
Yes.
It was asked to me by our pal Ryan Nanny, who was very specific about it being a solid verbal question.
Okay.
Who is more likely to make a bowl, Notre Dame or Oregon?
Probably Notre Dame.
Okay. They have the tougher finish, I think. Stanford, the service academies, Virginia Tech, USC, and Miami.
Yeah. I would say probably Notre Dame.
But they have a quarterback and have taken action already on the coaching staff.
Right.
Okay. Team more likely to have the same coach coaching their team next year, or neither?
Definitely Notre Dame. I don't think Brian Kelly's going anywhere.
Okay. Who would you take in a game right now?
Oh, man. I mean,
because the Solid Ver Bowl is not going to happen. Okay, let me ask you here. Forget about who's going to win between a dumb Notre Dame Oregon game. So they have to go at 4-2 to make a bowl?
Yeah.
Who are they beating?
They're beating the service academies, I hope. I think that they can beat Stanford this coming week because Stanford's kind of a mess on offense, but
and that's in South Bend, right?
In South Bend.
Yeah.
I think they can beat USC. I don't know if they will. I'm not confident in saying that, but
all right.
If you look at Oregon's schedule, I'm not confident that they can beat any of those teams.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that to be a jerk. I'm being serious here. I honestly don't know.
That is not a hot take.
So I would say Notre Dame. If I had to pick, the wins for me would probably be Army and Navy, Stanford, and USC.
All right, now give me, and we have not seen South Carolina or Georgia, but I'm going to assume they're not in here. Give me your top 4 in order.
Alabama 1, Ohio State 2, Clemson 3, and Washington 4.
Okay.
And I like Michigan a lot. I believe at this point they're kind of interchangeable with Ohio State. I do think if they played right now that Ohio State would win, which is why I have Ohio State in there, but Michigan would be number 5 for me.
Okay. I would go Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Michigan 3, Washington 4.
Yeah, okay.
And I'll leave Ohio State out for the moment.
Okay.
Even though they've got a very nice...
Those are our top
Oklahoma.
5. Same teams.
And the Oklahoma win looks even better right now, but that's what I'm going with. And who is your Heisman Trophy winner?
Right now, it's got to be Lamar Jackson.
Yep, I think I agree with you. I agree.
All right,
just making sure.
Dan Rubenstein, fun show.
Yes.
We're a little somber here. We're a little sapped for energy because it's been a long weekend, but
life is great.
Life is great. We are excited to keep this train rolling here. On to week 7 we go. We will be back on Wednesday to discuss a lighter slate of games, but still not short on interest and not short on college football storylines. So until then, please do like the Facebook page, facebook.com/solidverbal. Shoot us an email at solidverbal@gmail.com. And don't forget to go on out to itunes.com/solidverbal where you can subscribe, rate, review, and tell your friends about the show. For that guy over there, Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hillenbrand. Thanks again for tuning in. Catch you all in a few days. In the meantime, stay solid.
Peace.